And then there was another incident that happened just this week, and I thought, whoa, this is a big one. Because when my children get to a point where they don't want to nap on their own and they are not so easy, then they hit a sleep regression about 2 years old and they're like, no, everybody else is up. I'm up too. But at one point this week, I sat with my 2-year-old, put him in bed, and sat there until he fell asleep. It was a win for me that I was able to sit with him without feeling like I have a million things to do, without my mind racing about all the things I could be doing in this 30 minutes that I need to sit with him. And I felt completely at peace. And that was a big deal. Are you tired of the overwhelm and the nonstop anxiety and ready for simple, doable steps to beat burnout, support your body naturally, and process the heavy emotions through a biblical lens? Then you're in the right place. I'm Cassie, wife, mom of 5 home-birthed babies, and a trauma-informed women's health coach who crawled out of deep burnout myself. I learned how to rebuild my energy and my identity from the ground up. If you're ready for steadier energy, emotional stability, and joy that doesn't evaporate by noon, then grab your not coffee, take that one quiet breath you're going to get for the day, and let's dive in. Because if you're waiting for a perfect moment, you might as well pencil it in for never. Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Christian Wellness for Weary Women. I'm your host, Cassie Hutton, and I'm so excited you are here today. We are talking about when rest feels like laziness and why, when you're in burnout, it's so hard to rest. But we're also going to talk about the healing piece, and that when your body begins to heal, it will actually begin to let go and rest will feel good. Instead of when you're in that major space of deep burnout, your body is more or less forcing you to rest, but you feel like you can't rest because your mind is racing. So when your mind begins to slow down and you actually feel like you have the capacity to rest, it can be confusing because then you start feeling like you might still be lazy, or you might feel like you're still avoiding things. You might feel like you might still be in shutdown. Okay. And so I want to share some things that happened to me this week and some aha moments that I had, and just really grateful for the amount of healing that I'm standing in right now. A lot of it has to do with us moving into this new house. However, that first month of us moving into this new house, I thought I would never escape the feeling of overwhelm. For an entire month, I was like, I'm never going to get my life back together. I am never going to get my life back together. But slowly and surely and at a steady pace, things are coming together, and it's been beautiful. So, episode 104, I'm glad you're listening in. Sorry, episode 105, 3 signs you're healing from burnout when rest feels like laziness for depleted women. So I want to ask you a question. What if the thing that you're calling laziness right now is your body finally healing? As I've already said, rest can sometimes look like avoidance. Stillness can look like shutdown, and slowness can look like you're actually falling behind. And on the opposite end of things, especially in our hustle culture, hypervigilance or working yourself to the bone is rewarded, and we look like hard workers when really we're actually in burnout and we feel like we can never slow down, because when we do slow down, we're actually forced to face our demons and we don't want to go there. So a few things happened to me this week, and I want to kind of backtrack first of all a little bit to when I was in burnout. And your phone listens, the internet is always listening. Maybe I was searching things, I don't know. But videos would show up, especially like on Instagram, for example, where we were told that when your body actually begins to heal, you will want to rest a lot more. And I thought, well, I want to rest right now. I want to rest right now. I want the capacity to rest. I want my kids to be quiet and I want to take a nap. Especially when I was in deep burnout. This is a sign of being in deep burnout, is that you basically, when I would put my kids down for a nap, I would fall asleep with them because I was so exhausted. But also, my kids were at a point where they wouldn't go to sleep unless I laid down with them. My mind would be racing in the middle of the day about the dishes that I could be getting done while they're napping, but like my body was yearning to go to sleep with them and get the rest that they were getting. And so this can almost sound like, well, why are you telling me that my body can rest now that I'm healed from burnout? And so it looks different. Okay. It looks different. And also, rest is not equivalent to taking a nap. So let me just kind of point that out first. So this past week, a couple of different things that I started really reflecting on is, gosh, I have really enjoyed decorating my home and taking it piece by piece, little by little, room by room, and not feeling like I am being rushed to get the entire house done all at one time. Not feeling like I'm rushed to finish a project just for the sake of finishing a project, but instead making sure that I have my project completed the way that I want it completed. Not only that, I'm able to stick to certain projects for a longer amount of time rather than abandoning it before it's done. And as I was reflecting on that, I thought, well, that's different. I'm really a person who feels like if I start something, I have to finish it. And although I am ready for my house to be done and I want every room to feel like it's just perfect in the sense of I'm not looking for perfection, but I don't really need to add anything extra to this room. I love it the way that it is. That feeling of, yes, it's done, which my girls' room is pretty much there. The boys' room is pretty much there, other than some pictures on the walls that we really want to get. And so that feeling, though, of being so proud of myself that I'm not just buying random stuff and sticking it in a room. I'm not buying more than what I need. I'm not rushing through the process. I've been really reflecting on that. Not only that, but I've been really happy just to be home and be content with that and not feel isolated, not feel a lack of joy, not feel like I don't have a purpose. Instead, really leaning into this season has been different for me because for 4 years now, I have felt like I didn't have a place. I didn't feel like I had friends. I felt very lonely and I felt like I didn't really know where I was going in life. And that has been very refreshing to say, okay, I don't feel like I have to have, for example, let me just take like this podcast and my business and the Rooted and Restored Wellness course and helping women. I don't feel like I have to have that in order to have purpose still. Does that make sense? Although I do feel like this is my purpose and this is my calling. And maybe it's also a part of me that has just worked out my messaging to this point that I know I'm sticking with this and I'm moving forward with it. So maybe that has helped a lot too, because I know for a lot of women, they're going like, well, what is my purpose? I want to do this, this, and this, but I don't really know how to do it. I don't really know how to say it. I don't really know how to stick with it. And then if my message wants to change. So there's all of that that goes into it. And a lot of women find themselves in that place and a little bit confused about where to take it. And so some of that does come along with I've threshed out my message. I've walked it out to this point and I know this is the avenue that God has me on and the message that I'm speaking into right now. Anyways, decorating my house slowly and not wanting to do anything else has just really felt refreshing because in the past, or especially in the past few years, I've always wanted to work on a project. And obviously, decorating my home is a project, but it's different. I'm not on a computer. I'm not in front of a screen. I'm not worried about social media. I'm not trying to create, and really not get anywhere. What I feel like I'm building now is building for a purpose. I'm not just pedaling without any traction. And so that has felt different. And so that has felt like a sign of healing that I've really reflected on over the past few weeks. And then there was another incident that happened just this week. And I thought, whoa, this is a big one. Because when my children get to a point where they don't want to nap on their own, they hit that 2-year mark, and they are not so easy to just you've sleep trained, however you say that, them to where I could lay them down in their bed and I could walk away and they would take a nap. But then they hit a sleep regression about 2 years old and they're like, no, everybody else is up. I'm up too. I don't want to take a nap. I'm going to fight this to the death. And I have a really hard time at that point. Like, no, I have trained you. I am not sitting here with you anymore. I've got things to do. But at one point this week, I sat with my 2-year-old, put him in bed, and sat there until he fell asleep. And he took somewhat of a short nap, maybe a 45-minute nap. But it was a win for me that I was able to sit with him without feeling like I have a million things to do, without my mind racing about all the things I could be doing in this 30 minutes that I need to sit with him, which it wasn't 30 minutes. And I felt completely at peace. And that was a big deal. And I thought, wow, I needed to feel this in this moment to prove to myself that I can do this each day, because my 2-year-old still needs a nap because he is relentless, y'all. He's been my hardest one by far. And what I would do, though, up to this point is, okay, let's just take a trip to town and he'll fall asleep. I'll find something to do in town. We'll go get coffee, something. Let's just make a trip to town, drive around for a minute. He'll fall asleep and we'll all get a little break and he'll be happier for the afternoon. But obviously, this is still my nervous system saying, I don't really want to sit and be still yet. I'm still not okay with rest and downtime. And so this was a big breakthrough moment for me this week. And so I'm encouraging you with this story that you will get there. Keep putting one step in front of the other. And when you feel your body truly begin slowing down, you know that your central nervous system is healing, which in turn means your physical symptoms are going to start showing up, which, teaser for next week, we're going to talk about retracing symptoms, how the body, kind of like how meat has to freeze. It starts at room temperature, let's just say room temperature, and then it freezes. And then the meat has to thaw out. It has to go through it has to basically rewind into that same process. And the body can do that as well. So a lot of times when you feel like your symptoms are getting worse before they get better, this can actually be what's called retracing of symptoms. And this definitely has happened to me in the last few months where I felt like things were getting far worse, even though my energy levels were better and things were happening and moving. And I thought, but why am I experiencing all these extra symptoms that are going on? And now this week, there's been so much breakthrough. I was like, oh, this is what's going on. This really was some retracing. And so I'm going to share a little bit of that story with you, just a little teaser. And so burnout patterns, we're going to talk about a few of the patterns, these 3 patterns that I mentioned in the title. So burnout patterns move you to one of 2 extremes. It's going to either pull you away from things like avoidance and freeze, or it's going to push you to rush through them, forcing you. So recovery is not the opposite extreme. Recovery is range. It's capacity. You hear me say capacity a lot. It's your nervous system finally being able to stay present wherever you are. You don't feel the need to check out. You don't feel the need to rush through things. You don't feel the need to constantly avoid or freeze or feel like that thing is a dread anymore. Okay? Instead of getting yanked to one side or the other, you're able to go, okay, I can stay here for a while. So let's talk about avoidance. In burnout, avoidance is very loud. It's the task that you can't look at without a wave of dread, the guilt running in the background of everything else that you're doing. And so in recovery, the urgency underneath is gone. The task is still there. It just stops pulling at you in the same way. For example, when I was able to put my child down for a nap in his bed and actually sit there in the home, knowing that I had dishes to do, dinner to cook, a podcast to edit, whatever it might be, floors to mop, then I recognized, oh, wow, something is going on here. The urgency to get all these things done was gone. And they have been gone for quite some time. It's not that they don't still creep up or I don't have these moments, but overall, the urgency is so much less and basically gone. And if the urgency does arise, all I have to do is take a deep breath because the capacity is there to, again, calm my central nervous system down and talk myself through these things. Whereas before, I couldn't. It was just that my plate's too full. This is doom and gloom. I'll never get it done. This is a recycling thing. What's the point of living if all you're doing is laundry and dishes and feeding kids? What's the point? But that isn't there anymore. So my discernment question for you to know whether or not it's truly avoidance or if it's actually healing is this. Is there guilt and urgency underneath this, or is there peace underneath it? The second breakdown pattern that we're going to talk about is, or I should say burnout pattern, is freeze. So in burnout, freeze is involuntary shutdown. It's numbness, it's inability to start or respond. It looks like nothing is happening, but internally the body has gone quiet because it had to. In recovery, stillness becomes something chosen instead of something that happens to you. It's restful rather than stuck. Freeze is definitely the place that I found myself in whenever I was in burnout. And this is why these three that I'm bringing up, I'm really focusing in on today because I have a lot of experience in these three specifically. But this is not the only three that you can experience. There's so many more. Basically, however your central nervous system is choosing to respond is you can input those anywhere in here. But having the discernment to know, is this me actually in freeze mode or am I actually recovering? Because a sign of recovery, I'm going to read it again. Stillness becomes something chosen instead of something that happens to you. So in freeze mode, that's when you are falling asleep whenever you go to put your toddler down. It's shutting down whenever hard conversations come up. It's I don't want to say avoiding because I don't want to get it mixed up with avoidance that we just talked about. But freeze mode is you literally are just shutting down. Everything shuts down. You don't want to think about anything. You don't want to discuss anything. You don't want to cook dinner. If there's nothing physically, you don't want to do anything physically. But it's definitely a numbness and an inability to start or even to respond because the body's like, this isn't safe. We've done this for too long. We've been in the hypervigilance for so long that now we're forcing the body to shut down. And it's a safety button that the body naturally will default to. Let me also touch on the opposite of freeze mode whenever you are in burnout is constant motion. So constant motion is the counterfeit that most people mistake for healing. So staying busy, staying in motion to avoid ever landing in stillness long enough to feel what's underneath. So recovery is not about, because it can look like you have more energy, right? If you're just constantly moving and doing and going and being. But no, true recovery is actually being able to choose rest, to choose enjoyment, to choose to be okay with sitting still. So recovery is not more motion. It's the nervous system finally safe enough to stop moving. And so here's my discernment question for you. When I stop moving, does stillness feel restful or does it feel unbearable? Do you still feel like you have to be doing something if you take a moment to sit on the couch? Can you actually just sit on the couch and do nothing for 5 minutes? Don't take a book to read. Don't take your Bible to read. Don't turn on worship music. Can you just sit there for 5 minutes? If that feels unbearable, then that's definitely a sign of burnout because it's the central nervous system dysregulated. It doesn't feel safe because it's trying to avoid something. Deeper healing. Okay, the last one I'm going to talk about is forcing yourself to do things like pushing through or rushing to finish something. So Hence the story I shared about slowing down after the move. I am now all of a sudden okay with finishing a project, working days at a time on a project, or waiting on an order to come in so that I can finish the project properly. That's a big one. My Amazon order can't get here fast enough. So in burnout, needing things done right now, not because of a deadline or something like that, but because the in-between unfinished state feels unbearable. This often gets praised as drive and productivity, which is part of why it's very easy to miss. In recovery, you can let something stay unfinished and still feel okay. Nothing has to be resolved today for today to feel complete. So you can still look at today as a success or as though you achieved something, even though the project didn't completely get finished. Even if you told yourself that it should only take you a day or a couple of hours to get finished and it didn't get finished, you're okay with coming back to it. You're okay with waiting for the part to come in or the product to come in. You've learned that it will still be there tomorrow and you're not behind. That feeling of a race against time all the time is a terrible, terrible feeling. And I feel like I've absolutely been in that state for the last 4 years. A race against time all the time. It doesn't matter if, and it's the absolute worst if I actually have to be somewhere, especially in the morning at a certain time, because it's like, I just can't get there. The wheels are turning, but we are not getting anywhere. And I am in a race against time. And so when that race against time feels like it's slowing down and you can actually rest in the moment and you don't feel like you have to rush to finish something or force finish something, then you know that healing is happening. And so here's your discernment question. Am I moving toward this because I actually want to or because I can't tolerate it being unfinished? Really good question to ask. Am I actually moving towards this because I want to? Or do I feel like I have to just because I feel like I want it to feel like I accomplished something today? So here's your takeaway. Healing does not look like doing more or doing less. It looks like finally being able to meet the moment that you're actually in, being present in the moment, which is what we all want, right? I talked to a client today and she's like, well, my mom's coming to visit, but she's going to be on her phone the whole time. That is so sad. Let's be present in the moment for every moment that we're in. And even if you're in burnout and overwhelmed with everything, and that's just all your body wants to do is pick up that phone and scroll so that it can check out for the day, avoid that. Do all that you can to try to stay present in the moment. Talk yourself through the importance of being present and that it is actually healing for the central nervous system. And then on a deeper level, what am I trying to avoid? What is my body actually trying to deal with that I'm not actually allowing it to deal with because I'm always distracting myself with something? And this, my friends, is why I created the Overwhelm Detox Planner. It's a free resource that you can download if you want to help you detox the overwhelm in your life in order for your central nervous system to go, oh, okay, we can feel safe again. We can actually get rid of some of these things that I can control. And I can start decreasing the stress in my life. The overwhelm that I feel like is constantly there. And so therefore I'm saying busy, busy, busy all the time because I feel like I can never reach that thing that I'm trying to get to. This week, I want you to reflect, kind of like I did. Catch yourself in the moments, but I'm pointing something out to you to help you be very mindful and self-aware as you go through this week. I want you to notice one moment where you either rushed to escape discomfort or froze to avoid it. And I just want you to notice it. I don't want you to do anything with it. Just notice it and then start noticing it. Because once you start noticing it, that is when then you can actually start doing something about it. But don't put pressure on yourself to do something about it right at the beginning. Just notice it, pick up on it, become aware of it first. That's the first step. Okay? And I'll see you next week when we talk about retracing, and we'll share a few things that can happen whenever you're healing. And then I got one more question for you because I want to hear from you. I always want to hear from you guys. I would love to hear what pattern do you recognize yourself in? The avoidance, the freeze, the rushing through things, the 3 that we mentioned here today. Maybe you have all of them. And if you feel like you find yourself in all of them and you recognize yourself having all 3 of these traits, then which one is more dominant? Which one do you find yourself defaulting to more often? All right. Love you guys. See you next week. Bye. Hey ladies, I hope today's episode hit you where you needed it. If it did, take 30 seconds and share it with a friend who's burnt out, praying for relief, and tired of feeling like God's strength is for everyone but her. And if you haven't yet, leave a quick review on Apple Podcasts. It helps more women get the support they've been begging God for. Now I'm off to make my adrenal cocktail and do the slow, steady work that pulled me out of survival mode. I'll meet you back here next Tuesday for another episode. Bye.